Welcome to Prison Professors. I am Michael Santos, along with my partner, Lawrence Hartman. He is one of many members of our team that works so hard to help people understand how to get best outcomes if they're in the unfortunate situation of going into the criminal justice system at any stage. Lawrence, we've heard a lot about your experience of getting charged, of being a lawyer, of being a white-collar guy. Tell us some of the memorable experiences that you faced while going through or serving a 10-year sentence.
Well, when I first got in, I inherently knew, I was in a panic, frankly. I thought my family's financially decimated. What am I going to do when I get out? My career is over, no more ability to practice as an attorney because I knew I would be disbarred. A whole parade of horribles that I knew would happen as a result. And, a 10-year sentence, I couldn't even imagine that period of time. I started comparing it in my head to like how long it took me to go to college, and college seemed like 4 years that went long. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to go through college and law school, and that's the same period of time. And it seemed like an eternity to get through that. I couldn't even imagine what was coming on the other end. But I inherently knew I had to do something to prepare myself for the other side. So I started writing down all my experiences, what I was going through in the moment, because it's the only way I can deal with anything or cope with anything. So I started taking notes, writing down my average day, thinking about things from the past, writing down essentially my life story, trying to figure things out for myself as I was going through things, because I was in pretrial custody. So I didn't even know what was happening with me yet. Am I going to be able to reach a plea agreement? Am I going to have to go to trial? All these uncertainties. And I probably would have gone mad if I didn't have this outlet for myself, because I needed something. The brain has a very difficult time getting its hands around these kind of things. So once I got sentenced and I had some kind of certainty and I knew what I was up against, I knew that I couldn't let this be a waste, right? This is my life now. Whatever happened in the past, whatever the future is going to be, this is my life now. I have to live it in the best way I can. So I started writing every day. I started reading every classic book that I never read. I started reading books on philosophy, taking yoga for the first time, doing meditation for the first time in my life. Every way possible to sort of get, to prepare myself for when I get out. Now, I didn't know anything about all the stuff that you were teaching at that time, and I was in prison and I had no access to that information. But I inherently was doing it on my own, grasping for something that I could prepare for the other side. In the process, the 10,000-hour rule took effect. I mean, I knew how to write. I went from an Ivy League law school, but I wasn't a good writer. But writing every day eventually started bringing that talent out in me. The same thing for yoga. I mean, I couldn't even bend down and touch my ankles, let alone my toes. Next thing you know, I'm palming the floors. Anything over time, when you put the time into it, you're able to get better at it. And you might as well be doing it because it wasn't my time. When I was in prison, it wasn't my time. It was the government's time as far as I was concerned. And I was going to do everything I could to make the most of it so I can come out on the other side better prepared for my small children, to be a father again, to be a good father. I started looking into therapy. I dealt with my addiction when I was in prison. Not only did I take the residential drug and alcohol program, I took a non-residential drug and alcohol program. I started in a 12-step program when I was in prison and going regularly. And I helped learn so much about myself. It's very interesting because we all think we know ourselves, right? We live with ourselves every day, right? But very little time do we ever have to sit and think, right? It's like kind of like Albert Einstein used to go on these long walks for him to come up with these profound ideas because he got the noise out of his head and was able to just think deep thoughts. And prison forces you into that environment where you're just thinking deep thoughts because you have so much free time in your hand. Your mind just sort of wanders that way. It's not full of any given day. Any given day in prison isn't so terrible, right? The sun is shining, you're breathing air, you're not in traffic, you don't have to worry about paying bills. So just on a here, now, in the moment perspective, it's not terrible. But I was living with this constant fog of sadness, of uncertainty, of despair, if you will. That was just hanging over me. And I was able to work through that by doing all these different things, from the writing to, and I even got to the point where I was working with somebody on writing and editing for an addiction magazine outside of prison. I was able to help other people from inside prison who were struggling with their addiction by writing and editing this magazine. It made the whole experience a lot more fulfilling. I look back on my prison experience, I'm not happy about it. I don't think anybody likes to go to prison. But I can tell you that coming out on the other side, I'm a much better version of myself because of prison, so I am very thankful for that.
Larry, I understand you also did some writing of your own for publication while you were in there, besides for the Addiction magazine. Didn't you write a book while you were in prison?
Well, actually, I wrote 5 different books. I wrote one book on addiction, 101 Ways to Stay Clean and Sober, and that actually got published and handed out at an addiction symposium.
Okay, so when you say got published, could you tell us about that process of getting that published?
Well, it's very challenging to get published, but in that particular instance, it was with the Addiction magazine that I was writing for, and they wanted something to be able to give away for free at one of their symposiums. It was a promotional book. It had something for them, but it also had something very important for all the facilities. It was a software provider that was that owned the magazine. They were addiction treatment software provider, and they were able to hand that out and actually help people as a result. So they published. It was kind of like a self-publication effort, because I know you did an amazing job overcoming every challenge to get published in prison. And I would love to learn more about that, frankly, because I wrote 4 other books besides that one. And I don't give up. I'm still in the process of one day getting them all published. But you did the incredible.
Oh, so you wrote 4 manuscripts. They're not books yet. Did you publish? How many books did you publish from prison?
2 books I published. One right after prison and one in prison. The one in prison is the one on addiction. The one right after prison is on the criminal justice system, and I ended up self-publishing on Amazon myself.
And what's the name of that book?
That book is Guilty Till Proven Innocent.
And so people can get that book on Amazon?
Yeah, they can get that book on Amazon, and it details the experience from the entire criminal justice system, from pre-indictment all the way through supervised release. From soup to nuts, from cradle to grave, it covers everything and anything you could think of or imagine, from the details of what it's like to what kind of jobs are in prison, what it's like to report to prison that first day, what it's like to cooperate with authorities or not cooperate with authorities, as the case may be. So anybody can analyze their situation and their perspective from understanding how the criminal justice system works.
So you went to prison in what year?
I went to prison in April of 2013.
So you got out of prison in 2021?
February of 2020.
And you said you published this book right after you got out. What was your experience in learning the Amazon platform and how to publish a manuscript on your own?
Okay, well, the first thing I did actually was try to get a literary agent. And I tried hundreds, probably, somewhere in that ballpark, because I didn't want to give up. But I knew I felt this book was so important to get out there that I didn't want to just rely on literary agents. In fact, I even got a top literary agent to say they were interested, and then all of a sudden they disappeared. It's really kind of a fickle process in many ways, or it can be. So I decided that this book was important enough that I wanted to self-publish it because I thought it could help a lot of people, just like the addiction book I got published. And so it's been out there on Amazon, and frankly, I've been giving electronic versions of it away, copies of it away for free, that I've been emailing to anybody who's in need, from people that I help pro bono to whatever the need is, anybody who's up against a legal issue, and to family members, because it's helpful to family members to understand what their loved one is going through.
So tell us about the efforts that you've made to get that into further distribution. We know that it's now available on Amazon, but of course that's not the end of the job. There's the job of making people find it. I mean, you could be on Amazon, but there's probably more than 10 million books on Amazon. How do you get yours to stand out? What efforts are you making, and what success have you had?
Okay, well, some of the efforts I've been making is I've gotten in touch with and have been working with various different social justice oriented organizations, and have offered it to them for free for use, and I've given it to them, the electronic company, and I know that they've been working with people. There are also some advocacy groups out there. There's one called the Olive Group, for example, and a couple of others that I donated my book, essentially, the electronic book. I said, give it away for free to as many people as possible. I got on Facebook, and I created a Facebook group for, it's called, Facebook group called Failing Justice, right? And I created a website called failingjustice.com as a pro bono effort to help people to get this information out there.
Larry, you did a lot of work while you were in prison to prepare for the success when you came out of prison. What thoughts do you have about a cliche that kind of permeates every prison, that the best way to serve time is to forget about the world outside and just focus on your time in prison? What thoughts did you have about that saying that I heard throughout prison? I presume you heard as well.
Yeah, I mean, that, and it is what it is, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know, and that's essentially the situation you're in. I mean, you're going to feel like you're going to go through a lot of instances where you're going to feel like you've been slighted, whether it's by inmates or by officers or by the system itself. Or any given day, you're going to feel frustrated by, you get an infraction, for example, and you try to fight it and you don't feel like you deserved it. And at some point, or things are going to happen at home. You know, your wife or ex-wife or mother or someone's going to be trying to deal with your children or whatever the situation is, or your car, or whatever and they're going to deal with it on their own terms. And you can try to fight for what you want to get done from inside prison, but it's a losing battle. And you find yourself frustrated, and you find yourself full of angst and anxiety. And what I found that worked for me, and me getting involved in 12-step programs while I was in prison, was you just got to let it go. You know, sometimes you got to give it up to your higher power, whatever that may be for yourself, and just let it go, because the frustration and the anger that comes with that frustration will just kill you. You just got to focus on what you can control within your very own limited environment to get through the prison time with your sanity intact.
And we encourage you to get perspectives from as many different people as possible. My experience, of course, is you never accept that advice that the best way to serve time is to forget about the world outside. But I always value listening to other people. In my view, if you're going in there, you've got to think every day about what are you going to do when you're coming home, and what can you do today to sow seeds for that better outcome. And I certainly heard Larry doing that with his writing and his discipline. What are you going to do when you go in there so that when you come out, you've got opportunities in abundance? Larry, what did you hear? What memorable experiences do you have about what you heard about other people who've gotten out of prison and what opportunities opened for them or were not open for them?
Yeah, no, there have been some incredible stories. There's one individual, he was a member of a large gang, right? And he had gotten a life sentence. As a result of a change in the law, his life sentence got brought down to 28 years. Still an extraordinary amount of time, but he started taking courses on how to drive. He got certified in driving a forklift, for example. He got all these different certifications. And when he came out, he had life on the other side. He got a job. He came out and was able to support himself. He was able to reunite with members of his family and rekindle his life, one that he thought that was over. I mean, he literally started in Supermax, in ADX, and he told us stories about that, which would blow your mind. But he was able to get from that, from the highest of security levels, all the way home, plan, because he inherently knew what came to me as well, is that you need to plan to get out on the other side in order to survive back in society.
So if you're going into the criminal justice system, it's really important for you to be thinking about what is the best possible outcome. The more you think about it, the more you realize, hey, it's important for me to listen and learn from leaders like Lawrence Hartman, who is a partner with us at Prison Professors. We're so grateful to have him and others on our team. And we hope that you will become a member of our community so that you can work toward getting the best possible outcome for yourself. I am Michael Santos with Prison Professors, and on behalf of Larry and our entire team, we want to thank you for being a part of our community.